And welcome back to Bitcoin Advisors channel. It is Saturday. I wanted to give you some information over the weekend. I think it's incredibly important we take a look at. Is it really important? Is it that important? No, I'm just here on a weekend and wanted to digest the market and kind of take a swing all the way around the markets. Starting off with the dollar again, kind of breaking a key support level on the daily. I mean, it is on the hair. Some say it's close enough is close enough. Do you draw the trend line like this or do you draw it like that? Gosh, I tend to lean towards it's broken. It looks like to me, putting in two more highs, that is kind of the shark pattern that usually leads down to something like the green 55 at 110. That would align with Bitcoin taking a bit of a bounce. And even though I'm a bit of a bear, I think right now, just the way the stock market closed over the weekend, had a really bullish engulfing candle here on the NASDAQ, and that is going to be two drives of hidden bullish divergence. So shot up to the green 55 wouldn't be out of the cards, especially if the dollar goes down. And so what is that? We're talking NASDAQ at 1176 and S&P. They all closed the same way, bullish engulfing candles. All this would kind of bring us back to the top side of the range, nothing too critical. So I would say this, we'd need some really bad news next week for the markets to come down and the Dow finishing the strongest of them all. And where do those bounces typically come up to the 618 after the impulse moves? So I wouldn't say that's out of the cards. And that's right in line with the purple 200. And then I would kind of judge it from there. Very powerful bullish close for the Dow on Friday last week. What else did I want to bring up here is, so Dow, S&P, the dollar, you know, kind of, as I said, making a little bit of a double top right there. And you know, definitely Stokes cross up above 112.50. So, you know, momentum will remain to the downside. And I do suspect the next explosive move on volatility, and I do imagine volatility will continue to decline if the price comes down. I don't think it will start to expand. It might do something more like this. Let's see if I can draw here. Maybe something like that. And then we get expansion. Just a thought there. And, you know, could we really get the dollar down? It would take a major news economic event. And that's what is being rumored. Over the weekend, Janett Yellen put out some speech about how she wants to add a new central bank. Essentially adding another central bank that would buy treasury bonds and then resell them to add liquidity in the market in targeted audiences, something to do with controlling interest rates. Let's say you want to buy a car. Well, they want to bring the price of cars down, so they raise the interest rates for auto loans. Very controlling environment where the government you know, has the ability to limit prices on certain assets. So is that a bullish narrative for the market? Sounds like more stimulus money in the works to me. And at some point that Fed is going to pivot. I don't think they're there yet. So temporarily, my thoughts with the way Bitcoin closed the week as well. Well, the 5-day closure, let's see, momentum will remain down below 18,954. So if we get a closure anywhere here or higher, these will cross up. And again, volatility expansion. So do we have one more bounce off the lows, some more sideways price action, some more boring price action? That could be the case. But just looking at some of the lower term time frames, the 4-hour would need to break above this structure right here, and then I'd probably be looking for a run back at the highs at 19,663 on the 4-hour. Otherwise, momentum will cross down below 19,120, and volatility is still very low as price action. So a little bit of a bearish reset, if you ask me, as I'm noticing here, as Stokes, momentum was crossed up from here, and essentially the price just went sideways the whole time the momentum was up. As we cross back down, I would expect probably another swing down to the bottom side of the range. And then, better hope that we hold on to it. However, the 12-hour look was a little bit more bullish with this. As long as we're closing 12 hours above 19,108, I would say, points are towards the bulls. So that's a much higher term time frame, but I did see a couple drives of hidden bullish divergence coming back from this point right here. And all the way back from this pivot right here. So that has been providing bounces all the way along this range, from the 18,600 level. But I would say probably some more sideways price action over the weekend, and I would stick with the ranges on the CMEs, which CME, that's another bullish closure there. Definitely on the bullish side there. And just taking a look at our fibs here. So we're not even getting above the 0.5. And so if the move started to get going, I could see, a threat of a move up to that 20,900 region. But I do think we'd probably get part of a bull trap, and that is because of all the bearish news just growing around the market with the European bond yield crisis and even our own bond crisis. People don't realize when you raise rates from 0% to 1%, how drastically much greater that is than if you raise it from 5% to 6%. So 0 to 100, right, versus, 5% to 6%. The bond market is, I think, just beginning to see the cracks. And let's just check in on the news calendar for next week really quick. Let's go next week. Consumer confidence. That's usually an interesting one. 30-year mortgage rates, nothing high. Goods trades balance. New home sales next week on Wednesday. I didn't see anything on Tuesday or Monday. Let's see if I'm missing anything here. Global PMI. Global manufacturing, so that is going to be on Monday at 6:45 p.m. Any other big events coming up this week? A lot of real estate type stuff, new home sales, durable goods orders, initial jobless claims. That'll be a big one on October 27th at 5:30. 10:27. It's going to be Halloween before we know it. And that is jobless claims. And we got some GDP Q3 on the same day. That's going to be a big one. And this is Thursday next week. Consumer spending, core PCE pricing. The key thing is to look for the high economic impact for the United States. That's, hate to say, I don't really care about the rest, but let's see, anything else for the United States? Personal income. Consensus is that it grew, personal spending at the same. So I imagine that could have some impact on the outlook for inflation. That's exactly what we're looking for. If what the Fed is doing is helping inflation go down, then it is going to be bearish for the dollar, and vice versa. If what the Fed is doing is not helping with inflation, then things are, the dollar gets bullish and goes up. And that's pretty much what we're forecasting right now because of fiscal tightening. And inflation that's expected to remain high going into 2023. It's kind of a bullish scenario for the US dollar. Personal spending, personal income, nothing else. And these Michigan consumer sentiment surveys are relatively important. Consumer sentiment, I think it measures the consumer expectations, the index of 3 areas: how consumers perceive future prospects of their own financial future, and how future prospects for general economic conditions will in the near term, and their perception of future economic conditions in the long term. Each monthly poll has roughly 50 core questions, which examines a distinct fact. I want to take one of these surveys of consumer attitudes and expectations in order to be statistically representative. The same samples of surveys of consumers are statistically intended to include all American homes, with an exception of those in Alaska and Hawaii, and a minimum of 500 telephone interviews is done each month. Love to get a hold of those. And a higher than expected figure should be seen as positive bullish for the US dollar, while a lower than expected, so basically if people have a general outlook that is good, right, it's bullish for the dollar, bad for stocks and crypto. And on the other side, if people feel desperation, if they start to feel poor, if they feel like their economic future isn't going so well, consumer sentiment will be bad, and bad would be bearish for the dollar and good for risk on assets. I hope I'm saying this right. Again, so a higher than expected figure should be seen as bullish for the dollar, a lower, bearish for the dollar. So I did have it right. I have my beautiful little daughter here sitting outside the window playing bonkers on the screen. So I'm going to wrap it up here soon. So that's the economic data to be looking out for. So that comes out on Friday. Consumer sentiment. I'm going to write that one down for 10/28. Consumer sentiment. And I don't know why these telephone interviews are so important, but watch the market move. If something drastic comes out off, and it's the expectation versus the reality. So expectation is, consensus is 59.8, which would be higher than expected, bullish for the dollar. The previous was 58.6. So if consumer sentiment is going up, people are feeling better about the economy. That would be in line with our thesis there. We'll have to see how it happens. We'll be checking in on this stuff next week. Any other things I wanted to go over briefly on? So we looked at Bitcoin. We looked at, so the CMEs look like a bounce. Ethereum looks like a bit of a bounce here as well. but let's see, is it getting stopped out at the 618? So what you would expect is for this breakout, this trend line to hold. Is it an hourly trend line? What is that? Is it a daily? Looks like a daily trend line to me. And yeah, that would be a lot stronger if we broke this on a daily, but could you perhaps see the hidden bullish divergence from this pivot right here? Yeah, that would provide just a whole slew of these lower lows in price, higher lows in RSI, getting out of the bearish control zone just barely. And if we do confirm this as a local high, wherever it is, if we don't take out this high, you'd have 2 drives of hidden bearish divergence, which would play out on the other side. So are we at the 618? Is this the last opportunity to sell Ethereum as it gets rejected off of this trend line, or should it have been bought? I personally, if we're going to look at it as a breakout, would want to see it do something like this. I mean, you could get that straight shot to the green 55. Look how it lines up. Any kind of a closure above here at 1350 on a daily, I would say yes. Definitely going to head up to that 1618 fib. Again, not financial advice, not a financial advisor, but I do expect, lower highs to remain the trend until proven otherwise on the daily time frame. Yep, few higher lows, still lower lows. Statistically, these are more likely to break out to the downside, and we've been going over those targets all week, so I won't be boring you with that. But you can see it just going to line up very nicely with fibs if we do start to break out and go for those next levels on the other side. Yep, we're looking for first stop here, second stop here on Ethereum on the shorter term time frames. Remember, things don't move in a straight line. They move in waves, and that's why price action looks the way it does. Okay, Ethereum, last one I want to take a look at is Ape, because this thing broke back up pretty hard once it made a bottom, and you don't see any bullish divergence there. So it would have been from this pivot right here. You made a lower low and a higher low in price. Excuse me, yeah, lower low in price, higher low in RSI, and that got us a pretty good bounce there. Very good bounce. Just up to the 0.5 at the moment, but you can see on the lower term time frames, we already took out the 618. So essentially, this thing needs to put in a base and crack a 4-hour above here, and that'll very likely put us into this next major trend line. So essentially, if this thing's going to get bullish again, what you'd want to see is come up here and then maybe a couple bounces and then a shot back up. Something like that would be the bullish case scenario. Bearish case scenario, you start closing 4 hours back below here. Your next stop will be the 382. If you miss that, then downtrend remains in place. That was a quick shot for that one. And XRP getting rejected at that green 55. Putting in a nice bounce though. Very, very nice bounce. And pretty much in the same scenario right here on the 4-hour time frame. It did pretty much break this structure. It did break this structure right here. Bear with me just a second. All right, so 4-hour time frame above or below here gets you the next leg up. Let's see what it looks like on the daily. And that's what I was saying, is that perhaps we get a bounce off the green 55, put in one more drive of bearish divergence, because this thing likes to act in threes or fours. Four drives, actually, specifically. And now we're getting multiple drives, but just one more would really set the case for, you know, a revisit all the way down here. But that would look something like this. Bounce here, makes one more higher high, but a lower high in RSI, and then just breaks anywhere below here, makes support. And I'd expect something like that on the daily time frame, if we are going to get a bounce from this point. Otherwise, you know, all bounces are going to be lower highs, and that would be it for Mr. Ripple. I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys so much for tuning in on a weekend, and have yourself a blessed day.